Aloha, this is Radha, and I'm here to talk about our sun, which has just moved into Aries on the 13th of April. And this is the place where the sun is the most exalted in the sky. This is the place the sun does the best. The sun is our sense of power, our sense of authority, our connection to source, our direct link to consciousness. And in the sign of Aries, we have a capacity to really act on our download. We have this courage, this discipline, and this sense of action. Often, we'll see the ruler Mars in different places where we're not acting and we can get very frustrated. We need a physical outlet, a physical channel for those actions. Well, the sun really loves this energy of action because it's like I have, I know what I'm supposed to do and I want to act on it. The sun, if we think of it as the king, Mars, the ruler of Aries, is like the general of the army. And particularly in his masculine sign of Aries, where we're going out into the world and self-starting, this is this capacity to act on the commands of the king and go out and do what needs to be done. But it's not just the general of the army doing it, it's the king himself taking action, making something happen, making bold choices. We can see, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can see what other planets are involved. Jupiter has been here in Aries for quite some time. It's been a year, and he's actually about to move out at the end of this month, the 1st of May and the last of April, depending on where you're located. So we have this energy of having been acting on our beliefs for the last year. Jupiter's our sense of beliefs. And in Aries, we've had a sense of being really fired up about those beliefs, a lot of right and wrong, black and white, this is that, and that's part of what helps us act, right? That's part of what makes Mars's sign of Aries an action-oriented sign. Is not only is it a masculine sign, not only is it going out in the world, but it's clear. It's like, this is right, this is wrong. So I'm going to do what's right. This is what, and if I'm wrong later, I'll change my mind later. It's not a finisher, it's a starter. So we have this running theme of acting on our beliefs. And now that our power and our authority and our direct link to source is here, we have this through line. It's like the counselor is here reminding us of our beliefs and our righteousness, and the king is here saying, yes, let's move forward, this must be done. And of course, I very rarely bring up the outer planets, but sometimes for actual events or for our collective world experience, they can be really powerful to look at. And as many people know, we have Uranus and Jupiter joining on the 20th. So as I'm making this video, it is the 17th. And here we move forward into the 20th, and we have the two of them conjunct. Uranus is where we are experiencing like sudden shifts that seem to sometimes be out of the blue. There's an energy of just turning everything on its head, breaking through. There's an outsider energy. And there's this very sort of experimental quality where we are breaking old patterns and doing something different. Having this conjunction with Jupiter can really help to shift our beliefs around. We've been pretty steadfast on this is right, this is wrong, like I said. And this conjunction can really, create some radical change in the way we look at things. And this will influence our sun. This will greatly influence the way our sun is experiencing what action to take, what war to lead, and it's on a global scale, it's actually the leaders. The sun is the government, it's the presidents, it's the kings. For our own self, we are the king of our own being, right? We're the leader of this, and our connection to source gives the download to all the other parts of ourself on how we act, on how we relate and how we love, on how we communicate, on how we, show up for our beliefs and our commitments with Jupiter and Saturn. So it's like the leader of us, and how we move forward could be radically different than what we have been doing before. Now, we also see that we're going to have the ruler of Aries moving into Pisces. Right now, Mars is in Aquarius. So there's this, particularly for this conjunction of Uranus and Jupiter, there's this quality of social justice that Mars brings to the table. Like, I'm going to fight for what's right in society as a whole, and specifically for the little people, right? Kings have had enough power for enough time. I'm going to, the fight is to make things more fair, to help those who have less, or the masses as opposed to the few. And so this energy has been strong with Mars, but as both Mars and Saturn are now in Purva Bhadrapada, this star of awakening, we're starting to break out of the old paradigms of what that looks like, what that fight looks like in society, because we recognize more and more that whatever we see out there is also within. And if we can't work with our own dichotomies and our own battles within ourselves, then how can we speak to the ones that are outside of ourselves? So as Mars moves into Pisces, we're going to see that more and more. We're going to see, and it's here it is on the 23rd, we have Mars in here in Pisces, and we're going to see more and more of this quality of the sort of spiritual warrior within, where it's like, I gotta do the work myself. If I'm not connected to the oneness of everything, then, whatever is taking place in the outer world, I can only fight about so much. I can only fight those outer battles and blame other people for so long. At some point, I need to do the inner work. And we still at this point have Venus hanging on by a thread here in her exalted state. So there's this capacity for love that goes beyond the bounds of what someone gives or does for me, right? This love that's very deep. Our Mercury is still retrograde. There's still a lot of confusion when it comes to our communication. And we can see here Mercury is running right into Rahu. So there's a lot of confusion around our communication. We might really take what words people say and hear them very different than how they're actually being said. We might really distort things, particularly because it's retrograde. There's still this quality of listening rather than speaking ourselves. So the missing email or the text that didn't come can be really blown up in our mind to mean a lot more than we think. But this can also be a really powerful time to receive messages, right? Because the energy is so internalized with Mercury, we are really hearing more than we normally do because we're not so busy outputting and talking. We're not so busy getting things out there. And this deep discernment that can come here and this placement, especially because Mercury, while debilitated in Pisces, has this exalted planet of Venus here. And so there's a lot that can really be heard in this moment, and some deep inner realizations can come about if we're really allowing ourselves to be the spiritual warriors and sit and be in silence and meditative space, and not have so much that we need to really output. So it's going to really shift the way our sun responds to this presence in Aries. Normally, there's, like I said, a lot of action, a lot of power, and a lot of authority. But with Mars moving into Pisces and staying in this star of Purva Bhadrapada, there's a lot of awareness around how much of a king we can really be. What kind of a king am I? What kind of power and authority am I holding? And is it legit? Is it coming from a place where I'm truly aligned with source? I'm getting the download, but am I truly in my own righteousness? And there'll be a lot more questioning of that and willingness to look at that as Mars moves into Pisces. So we have this happening, and of course, then Venus shifts into Aries herself, and we could get a lot more selfish in our relationships, like a lot less accommodating, a lot less, oh, whatever you do is fine, because love is love, and a lot more like, these are my needs and this is what I'm doing, and you're either on this ship or you're not, because this is where I'm going. That can really come up when Venus shifts into Aries. There's a selfish quality in our relating to other people, and also a very driven quality. Whatever felt dreamy and mystical before is coming into reality in a way where we really want to take action on it. And, the physicality of relationships comes into being a lot more. So this is an interesting moment where we have so many planets in Pisces and so many planets in Aries, and we're really navigating this shift. There's a Gandanta point here from Pisces to Aries, where we are having to leap over or untie a knot, a karmic knot of surrender and this finding this ultimate peace and this ultimate ease, and then jumping into the next life, this new beginning, and having to, not necessarily remembering everything we learned from before, feeling so jump started to move and go that we don't necessarily tune in with everything we just experienced in the spirit realm. And we sometimes move forward without fully embodying our connection that we have received in the previous place. And I think the fact that Mars is there is really going to keep the link, because, and actually at this point, the other thing to mention is just that Mars and Jupiter are an exchange of signs at this point. When Mars moves into Pisces, he's in Jupiter's sign. Jupiter's already in Mars's sign of Aries. So there's a lot of power and perception available here, where they're really linking with each other, and there's a communication where Jupiter's sending some powerful information to Mars and Pisces on staying true to what's true, really following the link of truth over anything else. And Mars is really sending that courage and that discipline and that capacity to show up to Jupiter. And this exchange of signs really helps us recognize the truth of where we're at. Because again, while we're out there, commanding armies or telling everybody else what to do or leading, maybe, you're the boss of your organization or your business and you're in charge of people. Maybe you're in a position of leadership over children or people who are in some way, not as capable as you. And there's there can be a lack of compassion with planets in Aries, but because Mars is in Pisces, that it's not just a compassion, it's like a deep inner awareness that we are not actually that far ahead, or that we're not, that our sense of control and power and authority is in vain in many ways. And then of course, Mercury is going to begin direct motion, and that is happening right joined Rahu. So right off the bat, it's okay, those messages I received, let me start sharing them. And there can be a very prophetic sense to the way we speak and communicate at this point, really deep messages and deep things that we've been holding on to and wanting to get out, but retrogrades maybe been keeping inside, will start to come out in different ways as we move forward here. And then at the end of the month, like I said, Jupiter is going to jump ship and move into Taurus. And it's here in Hawaii, it's actually at the end of the 30th of May, but I mean the 30th of April, but here we are May 1st, and Jupiter is now in Taurus. And we have the sun moving into conjunction with Uranus, and Mars is actually conjunct with Neptune, right? And in the Western astrology, Neptune is actually the ruler of Pisces. So there's this really dreamy quality and a lot of capacity to, again, be in touch with, maybe all of ourselves and the spiritual warrior we've been in many stages. If you've I have a 7-year-old child, so we just watched this series on the Avatar. It's like this cartoon animated thing on this boy who's born as the Avatar and has to harness all the elements, and he brings it all together and has to really look deep within himself as far as whether or not he's meeting the task at hand. Just because you have this title and you're supposed to do this thing to save the world, there's a lot of inner reckoning that has to happen in order for that to be true for you. Everyone else can see your power and put you in that position, or you could have been given that position or taken that position in some way. But without that inner alignment, it will never really feel totally true. And this is the ultimate reckoning that every king must deal with, is this, am I ready to lead? Am I really embodying this? And of course, we often have to step prematurely into those states because that's just what life is pushing us to. But if we're not constantly assessing our own rightness and our own alignment, then we will fall at some point, right? We will make mistakes, of course, but those mistakes are pathways for us to go deeper rather than places for us to feel shame and hide or try to cover up our mistakes. So this is going to be a powerful, rest of the month for us here in April. and moving into May for sure as Rahu, Mercury moves out of Rahu, but then Mars will move in, and I'll do more videos on that. But I just wanted to share this little moment here that we have. And of course, the next thing will be Akshaya Tritiya, which I will talk about as well in another video, where the sun is exalted and the moon is exalted, and we have the capacity to harness the power of our luminaries being in their most blessed state. And so we'll talk about that soon. But if you do want to find out what the sun moving into Aries means for you specifically, you can check out my Patreon group. It's at patreon.com, Radha Home Astrology, and I will put a link in the description. I offer free forecasts for the general shifts that are happening. But if you want to find the breakdown for each of the 12 signs, you can join for a 1-week trial. And after that, it's only $7.77. So it's a super good deal. And we're doing a live discussion next Friday. Next Thursday, the 25th, on Jupiter's shift into Taurus and what that means for each of the 12 signs. So we'll see you soon. Namaste.